Okay, well, it's Monday morning. It's great. The studio's not open on Monday because we decided that Monday should just be a rest day. So Sunday and Monday, it's closed. When we're in the full swing of things, then we can actually use those days to go and uh, do the pottery, basically put the glaze on it, firing, and all that type of stuff. Actually, yesterday we spent Sunday glazing all the pieces that we had. But anyway, it's not what this video is about. This video is talking about is the tax credit that Tacoma is offering businesses starting to pay off. Now, if you remember, about a year ago, Seattle actually put through a head tax. It was controversial. So, companies that made over $20 million a year, they were going to tax every single employee that they had $275, right? And so that was going to be used to address the homelessness situation in Seattle. Now, I was against that. I thought it was the most silliest thing ever because you're basically going to be, it's unfair because it's not spread amongst all businesses. It's just those that are making a certain amount of money. And so it's going after the biggest ones like Amazon and Nordstrom's and even some grocery stores. There's Uajimaya, which is an Asian grocery store, but it's a very big one, and it makes over 20 million a year. So it would have even affected that company, as well as Starbucks and all the big companies you can think of would have been impacted by that head tax. Well, it lasted for a week, and then it actually was over with because they repealed it. The city repealed it because it was just not a smart thing to do. There's other things you can do to raise money for that type of thing, and the city is now addressing that. Seattle is, and actually come up with a very smart plan to do that. Should have did that to begin with. But it caused a ripple effect because that was when Amazon said, you know what, hearing about this, we're going to see if we need to open up another headquarters someplace else. So the speculation was that Amazon went looking around the country because of this head tax thing. It was one of the things that really irritated them, and it makes sense. Well, since then, they've kept their intentions on staying, obviously, in Seattle with a larger presence, but they've also started to scale up in places like Bellevue. And of course, also DC is going to be their second headquarters. So they were looking because of that. Now, a lot of folks down here in Tacoma felt the snub from some of these big companies because, again, people in Seattle kind of have this, um, even those that don't really need to be. This is not a slap against Seattle or Seattle businesses or anything like that, or people who live in Seattle. They tend to hold their nose up to Tacoma. And it's kind of funny because the glitz and the glamour that you see downtown doesn't represent everybody in the city. I mean, this is a fact. The pretty that you see, most of the people in Seattle cannot afford. If that was the case, everyone would be living downtown. They just can't. Most of the people that you see that live there in some of these other places or outside of Seattle would be able to live here and still have the same standard of, actually a better standard of living, but they're barely making it there. I mean, this is just the facts. Unless you're pulling in a large amount of money every year, we're talking at least 100 grand. You're not really in a good state in terms of Seattle. You can make it, but your quality of life is going to take a hit. I mean, that's just, everyone says that. I mean, it's just, I've lived there long enough to tell you that that's going to be the case. And so they turn their nose up. Well, that's the same thing with some businesses. They've turned their nose up to Tacoma. Well, Tacoma, even though it has done a lot in the last year, that has drastically changed the city, some of which people don't like because it's impacting their businesses. Some don't like it because it's impacting their way of life. Some feel like they're going to go the way of Seattle and start to have that kind of stuck up attitude. And so people don't want that. They want Tacoma to remain the way that it is in many respects, but still grow, right? They don't want to lose that. In fact, I can say doing business down here in Tacoma, people are very helpful. Now, I ran across one that wasn't. He was just a jerk. But I think that and again, he was in a certain, I won't say, but he wasn't the nicest of persons. And so I think that that's what people are kind of afraid of, is that kind of elitist attitude. Even though there are people down here who are very, very wealthy, many of them don't have that elitist, snubby type attitude, right? Well, Tacoma basically fought back against this whole tax idea. And instead of taxing businesses, Tacoma said, you know what, why don't we offer a tax credit? And ironically, it was for $275 per person. As long as that employee makes $60,000 or more a year, you would get a $275 tax credit. The company will. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry, there was a video playing in the background. But anyway, the city would give you a $275 tax credit per employee that makes over $65,000 a year. Now, it takes a while for companies to basically respond to that because moving an operation or starting an operation in a different city or doing all that stuff takes a lot of legwork, takes a lot of research, takes a lot of things going in the right direction to make that happen. So it's a slow thing. Now, the city wasn't necessarily going after Amazon. I mean, it'd be great, but that's not what they're going after. They're going after a diverse industry, meaning an industry, they don't want to put all their eggs in one basket. Seattle is very tech heavy. That doesn't mean that there's not other companies and things like that that are located there, but it's similar to San Francisco. It's very tech heavy. So much so that if something were to happen to the tech industry, then it would drastically affect the economy there. Drastically. That's not saying, oh, if Amazon just shut down one day, yeah, that would affect everything. But not even just Amazon. I mean, there's so many other tech companies that are based there in Seattle and based in Bellevue that it has really started to control their entire economy so much. Whereas before, that really wasn't the case. Tacoma and some of these other places don't have that luxury. You're not going to find Bellevue setting up in Everett. You're not going to find them setting up in Tacoma. You're not going to find them in places like that because those are places that people kind of, or I would say companies like Amazon look down upon, which I don't understand it, but they do. And so you're not going to have them locate there, even though a lot of their people that work there will live in either one of those places as opposed to Seattle. Your money's going to stretch farther. The fact is that there are people who work at Amazon. Not everyone that works at Amazon makes a lot of money, by the way, but there are people that do make quite a bit of money working at Amazon, and they choose to live not in Seattle. Why live at a place where even here, my sister's thinking about moving here to Tacoma, and I hope she does. And the places that she's looking for are very nice places. Very nice. Pretty big price, too. Yet, if she were to look in Seattle for the same thing, it wouldn't even come close. She's able to find a space downtown that looks really, really nice. I mean, it's more than I can afford, but it is. But you get a lot. I mean, it looks really, really nice. If you were to try to do that in downtown Seattle, it wouldn't even come close. And you're not going to get as much pretty as what you're going to get out. I mean, it's a really nice place. You're not going to get in, and I told her that. You're not going to get anything close to that. So people look at that and say, what would I rather do? Would I rather go to a community that's very similar in terms of what you're going to get, but I choose Seattle just because of the title? Doesn't make any sense. So a lot of their people, in terms of Seattleites, are moving to different places. A lot of them are coming down to the South Sound because you still have more of a city aspect than you would in some of these other cities, not counting Bellevue, because Bellevue is even more expensive than Seattle. So it's a huge issue. And so now companies are starting to locate down here because, in part, to all the things I mentioned, it's a lot more affordable. Rents are a lot cheaper for businesses to actually start up. A lot of mom and pop businesses don't have the stress that you would have up in Seattle. It's just a lot easier overall. And even bigger companies find it a lot easier. In fact, just in the last 3 weeks, 3 companies have announced their intentions to moving downtown in Tacoma. And these were companies based in other places, some of them obviously here. But a company called Tote, they deal with it's a maritime company, and they had started their whole operations originally back in the day in Tacoma because of the whole port and everything, and they do a lot of business with the port. Well, they're now relocating from Fedway to Tacoma, which is weird because typically companies do the opposite. They leave from here and go up to Federal Way or other places, but they're bringing 150 jobs to downtown Tacoma, and they're filling up the old State Farm building, which again, I don't think we're going to have a big company launching, meaning bringing in 1,000 employees. I think we're going to see a lot that bring in 100, 260 employees. I think we're going to see a lot of that. What that does is create that diversity. We're not heavy in one area. We have a lot of different other industries that come to the city, which is a good thing. So they're bringing 150 jobs here. A construction company called, and I'm going to say it wrong, Schuert Construction, are opening their regional office in downtown Tacoma. Now, they have offices in different places, but they're locating their regional office in downtown. Didn't mention how many they're going to bring, but probably only just a handful of people. But just that alone is good because these are well-paying jobs. These are not construction jobs. These are more or less office level type jobs, right? And both of these companies, I'm assuming, are hitting that threshold of offering $65,000 or more per employee. So they're taking advantage of that tax credit. Another one, which is out of Bellevue, and it's ranked in one of the largest insurance brokers in the country. It's in the top 60, and it's called Parker Smith and Feek. And so they had an event just a few days ago, downtown Tacoma, along the waterfront. They had 200 people there celebrating, food trucks and everything to celebrate the grand opening. And so they're putting an office downtown, right there along the waterfront. And so again, I don't know how many employees they're going to bring, but what it goes by is the fact that these are three completely different industries located in downtown Tacoma. There's another one that located recently downtown. I can't remember who it is, but downtown is becoming the focus. I mean, even the local newspaper, I mean, they no longer print newspapers anymore. It's somebody else does it, but they're moving their offices from where they are to downtown, which leaves a big building available for someone to actually move into, for a bigger company to move into. But they're moving their offices downtown as well because there's so many different things downtown where there's a lot of amenities, a lot of places to eat, a lot of things to do. So it just makes a lot of sense, and it's a lot more affordable than one would think, right? So these things are adding up over time, meaning that we're not going to get Facebook. I don't think we're on their radar. We're not going to get, all those other places. It's just not in their, it's not what they're looking for. We're not, splashy enough or flashy enough, which is fine. But other companies are looking at the area saying it makes a lot of sense because we're going to be able to offer jobs that we don't have to break the bank paying people, but we're still offering them a really great salary. We're getting credits from the city. They're able to afford homes a lot better. They're going to have like a 3 or 4 mile journey as opposed to whatever they're going to have up in Seattle or Bellevue. And it's going to make a lot more sense. The rent, I can guarantee you with all three of those, the rents that they're paying, you're not going to be able to find in Seattle or Bellevue. Just isn't going to happen. So, and in the case of Tote moving from Fedway to here, Fedway is a great city, great community, but you're going to have more of a city feel, obviously, in Tacoma than you would in Fedway. It's a lot different. If you're bringing clients in from wherever, it makes a lot more sense to be in a centralized part of a city as opposed to some of the suburban areas around here. So it's starting to change. So I think that basically the tax credit that Pierce County and Tacoma did in kind of a spite or a swipe towards Seattle is starting to pay off. There are other companies that are in the pipeline that's wanting to move here. Now, we've had some leave. There was one company that left. I forget who they are, but it's a medical type company. pulling out 160 jobs or what have you. So this kind of balances things out. But what it does do is it basically has a lot of diversification, right? That one company can leave, we get 3 more in the process, and they're going to offer a lot more diversification. There's others in the pipeline that are rumored to be coming here too, which also add more to that. And again, their focus is downtown. So I think it's a great thing, obviously. I think that probably next year you're going to see a lot more things happening downtown in terms of companies like these and others that are starting to look at downtown and expand. There's others that are here that have been dying to expand, and that's probably going to happen again. Is it due to the tax credit? We'll see. Zayda's calling me. So anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.